Well, good morning. Good Saturday morning, everyone. How are you? Let's just
Good.
the audience. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Pamela Fort, and I am the executive director of New Day Employment Network. We have been blessed to be the recipient of a Healthy Illinois grant, and we have been charged with the responsibility of creating dialogues around racial inequities and just racism in general. So, one of the things that we're doing today is we're having a conversation around breaking barriers. It's about telling your story. So, I've actually enlisted a phenomenal woman on her own right, and she is going to lead us in this discussion. Her name is Vashanti Taylor. Now, see, just a couple things about Vashanti Taylor. Well, you know what? I'll have Vashanti share with you who she is. How about that? And then she will introduce the panelists, and then we will start this robust discussion. I thank each and every one of you for coming on this call. As I stated in previous conversations with other guests, this is not an easy topic to discuss. So we try to have a little bit of humor in this here because it's tough. But I, for one, am grateful for you all willing to participate by sharing your story in the hopes that it will be a blessing to other people. Okay? All right. So Vashanti Taylor is going to introduce herself, and then she is going to introduce the panel, and we're ready to get started.
All right. Well, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I am excited to be here this morning. Thank you, Pam, for having me. I am just to share a little bit about who I am. Literally, I am, right? The I stands for inspirational comedian, the A for author, and the M for motivational leader. And simply, my mission is to empower, influence, and motivate in whatever I do, because I believe that we can change the world one person at a time just by going forth and impacting our circle. So here today, we have 9 people. So what it would look like just from the information we received today to go and impact others in our circle. And then they impact, right? So the influence will be a positive influence, especially that we're talking about now of what's going on with racism. So that's who I am, right? So thank you for just sharing. As this is a serious topic, a serious matter, of course, I bring in a little humor because that's who I am. Not even when I'm trying to, because I was like, where I was gonna wear my bonnet and I couldn't find it because I got so many. And I was like, let me just tell you how the people always racial profiling me, because I always let people know I am from the west side of Chicago. Hey, west side. But I do know how to put on my good suburb voice. For 20 years, I have lived in the suburbs of the outer skirts of Chicago, from Maywood, literally, to Forest Park, to River Forest. Also, well, no, not River Forest. I was next door to River Forest. But I have now moved to Bolingbrook. And so I know how to put on a good voice, but don't test me, okay? Don't, what you say? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm like, listen, I will go there for you. But this is the real life. This is what we have been accustomed to. And one thing I can say is that my mama, who's here, thank you, mother, for putting me into a situation where I can experience diversity at an early age. High school, freshman year, because growing up, all I knew was black and brown, right? That's all I knew. And once I had to go to school, and I was like, what? I'm going to school with other people. You see these people. It wasn't that I was racist, but because I had not been exposed to it. And by the time I got to 10th grade, 10th through 12th grade, I moved to Alsip, Illinois, a south suburb of Chicago. And it was like, hey, it was on and popping from there. And I think, and I know, let me say that's where I really blossomed, going from a small school in Melrose Park with like 200 kids, if that, yeah, maybe that much, with a little sprinkle of mixed races, to a school of 1,000 plus, where I'm like, now I'm just not me, and I had to be diverse. And I think that's what has helped me to be who I am today, and why I can speak to some of these matters, although I have not experienced racism at a level that some of you have. So today I'm excited to share the panel, my guests, that I actually know each and every one of them, and each one, so that makes it even a little better today that I'm able to share with you, and you share your story, because I think that it matters, for one. for two. Even though we have Jonathan and Claudia Robinson, I have not known them long. Just met Claudia actually a couple of months ago. We were on Bible study together on Zoom. Hey, Zoom, and talking to Pam, I'm like, I don't know who else could be it. And when you start praying and start, God, show me. Bam, he showed me the Robinson. So they'll be sharing their story. And then Mrs. Anlita Eaton Buchanan. I've known this beauty from church from years, and I know that she can talk. She's a blossoming butterfly. But not only that, and each one are going to share a little bit more of who they are. She definitely has a story to tell because she speaks about it, on social media. And then Kanika, I've also known for some years now from when we first started our church on the Southside campus. And we stayed in contact via Facebook because she moved out of state, came back, and recently married. So yay! So I'm excited that each one of you have your own story. And again, I was just talking to Pam, and I literally got off the phone with her a couple of months ago, and I saw your post. And you said systemic injustice. I was like, note, she gonna be on my panel, So not even knowing, again, how this was going to come together, it is so awesome today of how we have come together now as people, right, to share our story. At such a time as this, like you have to be under a rock if you do not know what's going on right now with, as they say, the blatant racism, the things that are right in our face. And I'm like, I can't make this whole story about that because we have our own agenda. However, I think that is fitting. I know that it's fitting because we talk about, and I had to make sure that I have my notes ready. We talk about the racism and how things in this country are going, right? Based on our leadership and based on what we do. I read an article, and Lita, shout out to journalism, right? We were having offside conversations, and as I am a college graduate of recently 6 years ago, I know all about research other than Google, right? And so I started looking up racial injustice, social justice, Chicago, and I found an article that was written, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And then, once you get to reading and figuring out where it really came from, I was like, oh. So it's a guy named, he's an attorney. His name is Logan Patton, and the article is called America's First Pandemic. He states that this pandemic started 244 years ago, which is racism, right? And it's nothing that's new, but it's something now that continues to increase more and more. And the racial issues are still on the rise every day. And so in this article, it's very good. And I'll give you the link. I'll post it at the end, Pam. But he talks about how this first pandemic, just as there's a cure for COVID, is there really a cure for racism? And our leadership, and this is my opinion here, is causing nothing but divisiveness, and there's demonic activity going on across the nation that's causing the white supremacists to stand up and boldly say, hey, I'm gonna do what I want to do and nobody gonna do nothing. And the truth of the matter is, we saw nobody did nothing. And it was heart-wrenching, sickening to see. And our babies and everybody, we have to look, and we have so many opinions, but the bottom line is, I saw something on Facebook says, we're not telling you to shoot them, but we're telling them not to shoot us like you don't shoot them, right? If that makes sense, because the way that these people stormed and they helped them up the stairs, oh, come on in. We know that it had to be some back end work. There's no way that they would just let Black Lives Matter movement come in like this. Somebody would have been hurt. Somebody would have been shot. It would have been more lives that literally would have been lost. And they would have just been like, oh, well, let's continue to sweep this under the rug, right?
Until it happened to them.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we're here today, because these stories, they're loud and clear. We know the Breonna Taylors, we know the George Floyds, and we know these stories because they got a lot of attention. But what about your story? What about the stories that people are afraid to talk about because they don't even want to hear, or they just say, you know what, I'm tired of it, and whatever, I've been experiencing so long, so I'm not going to say anything. And so I believe today is going to set the tone. It's going to help us, continually share our story, be a voice, because we don't know literally where this video is going. So I'm glad you guys look cute. Okay. You got on your good hair, your good makeup, but this can truly help somebody and shed some light in a dark place. We have a variety of stories, and people will share, and you'll never think, oh, you went through that? How did you deal with it? And so I'm so excited to have my friend and Dr. Barbara Evans. She's going to be closing us out and giving us some advice, giving us some strategies, how to cope with emotional stress, how to cope with these things that we're dealing with because of racial issues. So even if we have not been impacted directly, our people have been, right? So if people of color, we have to stand up and say enough is enough. Like I was starting to literally get infuriated last night. I was like, let me go to bed, because even as I know y'all heard yesterday, the new chick, 22 years old, right? And as we transition, blamed, I think she was in New York, blamed a 14-year-old Black boy for taking her phone. She attacked him, saying that she had his phone. His father was videotaping. I think he's not like he's famous, but he's well known. But he was recorded. She's attacking him, saying he got the phone. Come to find out, the phone got turned in later at the hotel. They went and pressed charges to arrest her. They had to pull her out the car because she refused to get out. And they were like, you were racial profiling. Well, how was I racial profiling? I know I could have handled it different, but this is after the fact. So think about that young Black boy who has now been mentally attacked, right? Physically attacked. His character has been defamed. So he has to deal with that, even though it was a short time. Every day, y'all, enough is enough. So as we go forth, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to Jonathan and Claudia Robinson. I'm going to allow this lovely couple to share their story. As you can see already, they are a biracial couple, but that is not all about them. They have children that they'll share their ages. And then just pretty much, Claudia's going to open up with just some of the things that she's experienced, and Jonathan will go from there.
Just 1 second.
Welcome.
Shanti,
yes.
Just 1 second. I do have a couple other people.
Okay.
That you're letting in.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because they were on that list and looked like they had problems trying to connect.
Okay. No problem.
If that's okay, guys, just give me a moment, okay? Let's see. Okay, but go ahead, because they're going to be muted. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Jonathan and Claudia, for joining us today on the panel to tell your story. I'm excited that you guys are opening up. So go ahead and tell us, how long have you guys been married first?
Well, we actually just got married in October. So
newlyweds. Okay. So how long y'all been together?
We've known each other for a little over 10 years now. But we've been together for about 5.
Okay.
So it seems like it's only been like 6 months, but I guess that's a good thing.
That's all good.
Right. So when Vishanti had approached me about joining this conversation, I was actually really excited because this is something that I know needs a lot of attention. And I was telling Vishanti originally that this is something that I wanted to take the initiative and try to start a panel, sort of like what we're doing today, and just open, the floor to be able to allow other people to be able to talk about their different experiences. I can't necessarily say that I have been directly affected by racism, but since Jonathan and I have been together, there have been little things here and there that I've noticed that have definitely opened my eyes a lot more to, just the indifferences in the world today. One I can say is when him and I first started dating. So I have a daughter from a previous relationship. So obviously she's not mixed. She's Polish and Italian and Mexican, right? So us together, newly in a relationship with my 3-year-old daughter, who's clearly, not his, draws a lot of eyes. And there were many times where we'd be walking through the store and you could just see people were just trying to get into our business and try to figure out like, okay, so what's going on here? Mm-hmm. Why are they together? And who is this little kid? Do we need to save this kid? What's going on? Mm-hmm. And
exactly.
And, it made me start feeling uneasy in a situation that I've never felt this way before, mm-hmm. So it was new to me. And I know he felt it because I'm not going to lie. There were times where, okay, we'd go into a store and he'd be like, oh, I'm going to go over here. And he'd go, grab and get what he needed. And, me and my daughter, we'd grab what we needed and then we'd meet back up in the checkout line.
Right.
And it wasn't like I'm embarrassed to be around you or I'm uncomfortable to be around you. But in a way, it was, people make us feel uncomfortable, kind of squeezing us up with their eyes and, what's going on here and why is this? And, so it just causes a lot of, internal turmoil. So that was one of the first instances where I, directly was affected by not necessarily racism, but kind of at the same time, racism and stereotyping and kind of just what is
stereotype. Exactly. Like you said, it's a different level, but it's still an experience, right? And you said it, that it made me feel some type of internal turmoil. And when you said that, it reminded me, my mother-in-law was very, dark brown skin, and my father-in-law is Irish and Cuban. And so my sister-in-law, very light. So the same thing she will often say going to the store. And even my niece, she's dark. Her kids are very light. She's like, once I looked at her before, I was like, oh, that's so cute. You're babysitting. But my niece, she's not nice at the mouth. She let her have it, because again, this is the America we live in today. As the people say, we write it, America, KKK, we live in today, that it causes us to feel some type of way. So thank you for sharing that, Claudia, because that definitely still has changed the way that you guys were approaching in the beginning. Like, hey, you go here and I go here. It's kind of like, we don't want no problems. We don't want no smoke in the city, so to speak, right? And this is what we're doing. Are you guys still doing that till today, or it's kind of like now you're a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah, it doesn't phase us.
Right.
I don't think, and it might just be like a mental thing. We're not even paying attention to that anymore. It doesn't, bother us. So if people are looking at us, I'm like, ooh, they like my coat, So I'm not even,
Right.
I have a question for you, Jonathan.
I like that.
So, and Shanti, this is something, our own biases, how do you feel when you have Black women, Black men looking at you all when you go in the store? Because we have to always flip the script. So how does that, when, someone look at you like, really?
I'm going to hear, or I'm a thinking, like, no one ever approached me and said anything, right? No one's going to say it, but like the looks are enough to know that I know, like, some Black people be looking at me like, really, this is what you're doing? Let me tell you something, like, for me, I have never been, the way I was raised, at least the way my mom raised me, was never to write off people just because they have a certain race. So I'm with this woman because she is Team Jonathan all the way. So I'm going to support her like she going to support me.
Ooh.
It has nothing to do about, like, I found my soulmate, so I'm going to support her in public, in private, it doesn't matter, So if I'm going to own that, I'm going to own that. So, initially I had to keep that at the front of my mind, but I'm not going to lie to you, like, in the beginning when we first started dating, that's the first thing I thought about. That's the first thing I thought about. One, when we first started dating, what my mom was going to think, what people were going to think, and then even my own thoughts. I'm like, how does look? We look like this, and essentially we have a white child walking with us. I'm all types of feelings going through my mind, but I had to essentially really take myself out and really ask myself, has she truly been there for me, and do I truly love her? Does she truly love me? And the answer is yes. There's nothing else I need to worry about, especially when you got the Lord underneath you, backing you up too. You can't worry about what everybody else talking about. You got to worry about the sanctity of your household and the sanity in your household. So that's what I did. But everything that you're saying, I thought about constantly. How it looks to Black women, how it looks to myself, how it looks to other Black people, So yeah, it definitely.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. That was a good question. Definitely, because like you said, when you flip the script and look at it, because when it, we didn't even talk about that, offline, but when you look at it, the emotions, and like you said, but when you're processing it, no matter what, she Team Jonathan and, you Team Claudia. So that's the most important thing that I think that, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It's what you believe and what for you all. And even in that, like you said, just kind of now sharing when we were talking offline, you know, just some of the experience, because you told me that you grew up in the suburbs all your life. You didn't have the privilege to be West Side like me. You know, I migrated and fit right in. I say suburban girl with hood roots. I got a t-shirt like that. But, you know, it really makes you grow up differently and view things through your eyes differently. So can you share some of your experiences that you have as a Black young male in a suburban setting?
Yeah, so I experienced a lot of racism actually. So when I first moved out here to the suburbs, I think it was probably like 5 Black people that lived in the neighborhood, and I was one of them, right? So growing up, I had interactions with the police. You talking about stereotyping? I'm talking about stereotyping to the highest extreme. There be times like I like being active, I like running. I couldn't run at night because I'll be running through the neighborhood at night or whatever. And you know, there was a group of white people having a cookout, and I ran past their house, and I could hear the comments, you know, hey, we got the cops right here. Like this here, I'm like 14 years old, you know, that happened at the age of 14. At the age of 16, we kind of talked about this offline too. I got pulled over 3 times in one night on the same street. And I was headed to the bowling alley, and the cops searched our car. It was me and my buddy. And then, you know, I talk about this too, like maybe the way I was dressed probably don't help, but I should be able to wear what I want to wear. You talking about back in 05, this is when, you know, long white tees was popular and the fitted hats and the Timbs. So I used to dress that way. And we was in the Cadillac, so we got pulled over 3 times one night. They searched the car. I got to my destination, which was a bowling alley. So this whole night I was trying to go bowling. I got to my destination. We walk into the bowling alley. There's a cop at the door. So he walks up to me and my friend, just loud enough for us to hear, and said, if I got any BS out of y'all out of here. Only to us though, no one else. And I can see if he, you know, said it loudly to all the other young kids who walk in there, but it's only to us two, to me and my friend. So like that type of stuff I experienced. And then the stereotyping, I couldn't like, my mom always, and it's so sad because my mom had to teach me, and I'm pretty sure y'all know too, my mom had to teach me, you can hang out with your friends, but anytime there's 2 or more of y'all in a group, the police are gonna get called. And sure enough, every single time, if I was 5 of my friends got together, we was just walking down the street, police showed up every single time. And they would show up with stories like, hey, there was a missing dog. Did y'all see it? Like, they just trying to probe. We on the street corner. We may just meet up just to go somewhere. We just meet up, police get called. Every single time it happened. So to me, it's kind of like, it'd be kind of discouraging because even if you wanted to hang out with a group of your friends together, we all knew every time we hopped in the car, hey, most likely you're gonna get stopped tonight. You know, and like these young high school kids, so if they make mistakes or some kids may want to, you know, they may experience like with marijuana or whatever, I had to like talk to my friends, like make sure you don't have nothing in the car. Because we don't have the privilege of like some of these suburban white kids I went to school with, they get in trouble with the law and they just get, hey, you know, don't make a mistake again, keep going, you know. Yep. But for us, I knew it was a big deal because I get pulled over and if one of y'all got something, they're gonna impound the car. We got cars getting pressed, all this stuff is gonna happen to us. So I had to get my friends before they get into the car, and we had to like kind of talk to each other. We get pulled over, you kind of know the drill.
So you were, like you said, just even listening to you, that was like 15 years ago, you know, and that, like you said, it doesn't matter the years because we all knew we were exposed to Rodney King back in the day. I think I was like in, I don't know, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and it wasn't really known to me and what happened until later, you know, but it was like, this is still happening to this day. That's so scary, you know, that this is not going anywhere. And for you, Jonathan, to have to experience that, and like you said, you're telling your story, but I know we have how many other Black and brown boys that can tell their story that are now men in their 30s and now rearing their nephews, their sons. You know, we talked about your son is only 3 right now. So, you know, you can't equip him with this information just yet, you know, because it'll be too heavy. However, once he starts going to school and being exposed, you're going to have to start sharing. You were sharing about your nephew, you know, that because of what you've experienced, you're like, hey, I can kind of tell him this is what you got to do. This is what you got to prepare.
So yeah, by the time he was 12, when he first moved out here, I kind of told him, this is like a preteen age. So I just kind of gave it to him raw. I kind of told him, listen, you are going to be out here. You're in the suburbs, right? You're going to look different from a lot of people that's going to be out here. So I gave him the rundown. Anytime you want to hang out with your friends, I'm not shocked that y'all gonna want to dress a certain way. This is when dreads is popular and the music he listened to. You gonna want to dress a certain way. I'm like, that's fine. You should be able to wear what you want to wear, but you got to understand the energy that's going to come with it when you're Black. You just got to understand that. So I say, you and your friends hang out, best believe the police are going to be rolling up and asking you questions. You know, you want to make sure you have your ID on you. My nephew's diabetic, just to give y'all some insight. So my biggest fear the entire time, because he has to take insulin with him. He has to walk around with a backpack with syringes. So my biggest fear was that a cop was going to be so ignorant to the point to think that he had drugs on him because he had a syringe. You know, it was one of the things in the back of my mind. So like, always keep your diabetes medication on you. Keep your ID. And if the cop asks you questions, have some communication skills. So I had to teach him how to have some communication skills. So unfortunately, you know, even if we in the right to ask a cop, why you pulling me over, why you harassing me, it doesn't usually end well for us. So I had to teach him, like, okay, this is a certain way you can talk to a police officer, but you need to be prepared for these things. These are things you need to be prepared for, you know.
So from what I've gathered just from you speaking, you know, now this is something you even just seem, you know, so passionate about sharing. You're like, look, I'm not telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I know. And I think that's the best experience as a teacher, right? What you have already been through to share that with others. And one thing I was going to ask you is, how has that made you now, you know, with the experiences, how has that formed who you are today and how you behave?
Yeah, it like I said, it's kind of discouraging, but we all, like you said in the start of this, like you was living on the west side and you in the Bolingbrook, and now you got your suburban voice, but that feeling of you feeling like you got to fake it, you know, especially like you become grown and you in the professional world, you kind of feel like, I'm pretty sure everybody can relate, you kind of feel like you walk on a job, you got to talk a certain way, you got to act a certain way, you pretty much got to change your whole identity to fit in to the main culture, to earn an income, to do whatever. But after a while, it gets exhausting. It gets exhausting trying to pretend, trying to be, you know, and then you flip-flopping back so much, you know, you come home, you're a certain way, and then you got to step out into the world, you got to be another way. But that other way is not really 100% authentic to who you are, and it kind of eats it. And that's why they say us Black people suffer from identity crisis, because you got to be 20 different people sometimes, you know, because you got the world constantly telling you, oh, you're not accepted like this, but we want to accept you for your culture. So we like your music, the way you dance, the way you do your hair, but don't be this way for real. When you come to my establishments or whatever, don't be this way when I see you out in the street. But I want you to be this way on TV and everything else. And it's kind of like, wait, you appreciate the music and everything that my culture breeds out, but you don't appreciate me. Now I got to be essentially, you know, Matthew or somebody else to be accepted. Like that's eat at you, you know. So I'm like, you know, not trying to be too depressing, but that's how it was brought up to me. And then we talked about, you know, I love the Lord, but we talked about the church when I was younger, a kid growing up in the 90s. Every church I went to had a picture of the Messiah, of Jesus Christ, with blue eyes and brown hair, you know. So to me, it shows me as a young kid, it's just reinforcing the fact that my skin tone, what I do is not correct. It's not in the term of righteousness. It's not in the term, but we know that's not the truth, right? God delivers the truth. Now we know that's not the truth, but as a kid, that, you know, especially growing up in the suburbs, that's
what you saw.
That's what you see.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you see. Don't talk this way. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do. Okay, what? This is all part of my identity. Who am I supposed to be? You know.
That's good. So even in that, like you said, just the main thing is your emotions. You know, like you said, it's discouraging, but like you said, not to get to a point where you're so low, to realize this is the way that the world is. However, this is not the way that Jonathan has to be, or nor those who are in my life have to be, you know, because now, especially, I think that's the thing that I take away from this. Emotionally, it is draining, you know, and like I said, Dr. Byron Evans will speak to that, how we can deal with that and how we are not going to be continued to be oppressed people because of this is what's happened for years, where this is the time that we tell our story, continue to break down barriers and continue to say, you know what, as long as I can, I'll continue to share. I know that it may feel and bring back some emotions, but it's going to help somebody. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Robinson, for sharing your story. I appreciate you. I know that somebody will be like, an aha moment, because this is not just for people to, hey, you know, take and go, oh, okay. But it's also for some to say, well, maybe I can support somebody else that I know personally has gone through this and they don't want to share their story, you know. So thank you again for sharing your story.